They do something small, something that seems insignificant, a comment that stings, a boundary you set that they ignore, a favor they forget to return. And you're left thinking, did they really mean that? Am I overreacting? Maybe I'm being sensitive. But that's not an accident. That's a test. Narcissists are not random. They're not careless. Everything they do in the first few weeks of knowing you is deliberate. They're testing you. They're checking your limits. They're seeing how much they can get away with. And most people fail the test without even knowing they're taking it. Here's why this matters. The way someone treats you in the first month determines the entire trajectory of your relationship with them. Because if you pass their test, if you let the boundary violation slide, if you accept the disrespect, if you rationalize their behavior, then you've just shown them exactly what they need to know. You're someone they can push. And that's when the real damage starts. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what these early tests look like, why narcissists do them, what they're actually revealing about you, and most importantly, how to recognize you're being tested before it's too late. Because the difference between someone who ends up trapped in a narcissistic relationship and someone who escapes early, it's not luck. It's recognizing the test and failing it intentionally. You need to understand something about how narcissists operate. They're not looking for victims. They're looking for supply. Supply is anything that feeds their ego, attention, admiration, validation, compliance, fear, anger, shame. They don't care which one. They just need something. And because they're motivated by supply, not by emotion, they're incredibly strategic about who they choose. They can't manipulate someone who won't engage. They can't control someone who has solid boundaries. They can't feed off someone who doesn't react. So before they invest time and energy into someone, they test. They test to see if you're reactive, if you get triggered, if you defend yourself, if you explain yourself. You're reactive. And reactive people are perfect supply sources. They test to see if you're empathetic, if you feel bad when they're upset, if you take responsibility for their emotions, if you try to comfort them, you're empathetic. And empathetic people are the easiest to manipulate. They test to see if you respect yourself, if you stand by your boundaries, if you don't negotiate with guilt, if you can say no without apologizing. You respect yourself, and those people are much harder to control. The test isn't malicious, it's practical. They're literally just checking, is this person going to be useful to me or not? And the scary part? Most people fail the test and never even realize it. 7 early tests narcissists use. Test 1, the boundary violation. They ask you to do something you said you wouldn't do. Maybe you told them you're not available Saturday night. Then they ask you to cancel your plans. Maybe you told them you don't lend money. Then they ask to borrow cash. Maybe you said you need space. Then they show up at your door. It seems small. One boundary. What's the big deal? But it's not about the boundary. It's about your response. If you cave, if you change your answer, if you prioritize their need over your stated limit, you've just told them that your boundaries are negotiable. They're not real. They're just suggestions that disappear under the right pressure. Test 2, the disrespect disguised as humor. They say something that's clearly mean, but they wrap it in a laugh. You're so sensitive about that. You're not as smart as you think. That outfit is interesting. The comment stings, but they smile. They laugh. They suggest you're overreacting if you call it out. This is the perfect test because it works 2 ways. If you laugh along, they've learned that you'll accept disrespect as long as they frame it as a joke. If you get defensive, they've learned that you're sensitive and easy to trigger. Either way, they win, because a narcissist would rather trigger you than have you respect yourself. Because a triggered person is reactive, and a reactive person can be controlled. Test 3, the emotional explosion. They lose their temper over something small. You didn't respond to a text fast enough. You disagreed with them on something minor. You said something that could be interpreted as criticism, and suddenly they're upset, angry, cold, and they expect you to fix it. What's happening here is critical. They're testing if you'll take responsibility for their emotions. If you apologize even though you didn't do anything wrong. If you change your behavior to make them happy. If you feel responsible for calming them down, they've learned that you're emotionally dependent on them, and an emotionally dependent person can be controlled through emotional withdrawal. Test 4. The sudden disappearance. They go silent. No text, no call, no explanation. For hours, maybe days, and you're left wondering, did I do something wrong? Are they mad at me? Should I reach out? This is a test of your attachment. If you panic, if you reach out first, if you apologize just to get them back, you've told them that you can't tolerate being ignored. And a person who can't tolerate being ignored can be controlled through silence. Narcissists use silence like a weapon because it works. Because most people would rather have conflict than abandonment. Test 5. The excessive flattery. They tell you you're special. You're different from everyone else they know. You get them in a way nobody else does. You're beautiful. You're intelligent. You're the one. And it feels amazing. But this is a test of your self-awareness. If you believe the flattery, if you start thinking, maybe I am special to them, if you become invested in maintaining their admiration, you're now motivated to keep them happy. And a person motivated to keep someone happy can be controlled through withdrawal of that approval. Because the flattery will stop. It always does. Test 6. The boundary push. They ask you personal questions very quickly. They want to know your insecurities, your past traumas, your fears, your shame, and they're very skilled at making you feel safe to share. You can tell me anything. I'm not like other people. I understand you. They create this false intimacy where you feel like you can be vulnerable. But what's actually happening is they're mapping your vulnerabilities. They're learning what wounds they can pick at, what insecurities they can use, what fears they can activate. Because once they know your vulnerabilities, they can use them against you whenever you start to set boundaries or resist them. This early sharing feels like intimacy. It feels like bonding, but it's actually reconnaissance. They're gathering intel, and they'll use it. This ends part 1. Recognizing these tests is your first step to freedom. Test 7. The reaction test. They do something that you know is wrong. They know you know it's wrong, and they watch your reaction. Maybe they lie about something small. Maybe they're rude to a waiter. Maybe they take credit for something you did. Maybe they break a promise, and then they watch to see if you, A, call them out directly, B, ignore it and move on, C, get upset but don't say anything, D, question yourself about whether it was really wrong. If you do A, they know you're someone who confronts. If you do B, they know you either didn't notice or don't care. If you do C, they know you'll be internally upset but won't express it, which means they can do it again. If you do D, they know you're easy to gaslight. This test is so simple, but it tells them everything. It's the master test, because based on your reaction, they know exactly how to approach you going forward. What the tests actually reveal. Now you understand what the tests are, but what are they revealing about you? Here's the hard truth. If a narcissist tests you, it's because something in you suggests you might be available. Available means you have certain vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities aren't weaknesses. They're often strengths that have been weaponized. Empathy. Narcissists test empathetic people because empathy makes you take responsibility for others' emotions. Loyalty. Narcissists test loyal people because loyalty makes you stay even when things get bad. It makes you give them chances. It makes you believe that if you just love them enough, they'll change. Self-doubt. Narcissists test people with self-doubt because self-doubt makes you question your own perceptions. It makes you easier to gaslight. It makes you accept their version of reality over your own. Need for approval. Narcissists test people who need approval because the need for approval makes you work for their validation. It makes you change yourself. It makes you negotiate your boundaries. People-pleasing. Narcissists test people-pleasers because people-pleasers would rather have conflict with themselves than with others. They'll abandon themselves to keep the peace. So when a narcissist tests you early and you fail the test, you're not failing because you're weak. You're failing because you're exactly their type. You have the vulnerabilities they need. You're the supply they're looking for. How to pass the tests. So how do you actually pass these tests? How do you show a narcissist that you're not available? Test response 1. Hold your boundaries like they're non-negotiable. When someone tests a boundary, don't explain it, don't defend it, don't negotiate it, just hold it. I can't do that Saturday. I understand, but I can't do that Saturday. There's no emotion. There's no explanation. There's no opening for negotiation. You're not angry. You're not cold. You're just consistent. This tells them, this person's boundaries are real. I can't push here. Test response 2. Don't react to disrespect. When someone makes a disguised insult, don't defend yourself. Don't laugh along. Just acknowledge it flatly. That comment was disrespectful. I understand. I'm not okay with being spoken to that way. Test response 3. Don't take responsibility for their emotions. When someone gets upset, don't apologize for existing. Don't change who you are. Don't try to fix their feelings. I understand, but I'm not responsible for your emotions. You are. Test response 4. Don't chase. When someone goes silent, let them. Don't reach out. Don't apologize. Don't panic. Just wait. This tells them, you don't have this level of power over me. You're not my emotional lifeline. Test response 5. Question the flattery. When someone flatters you excessively, don't just accept it. Question it. Maybe, but I'm skeptical of excessive praise from people I just met. This tells them, you can't control me through approval. Here's what most people don't understand about narcissists. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to recruit you into a dynamic where they win and you lose, where your boundaries disappear and theirs become law. But here's the power move. If you know the tests exist, if you know what they're looking for, you become unavailable. You stop being supply. You stop being a viable target. Because narcissists are lazy, they want the easiest supply available. They want someone who'll give them access without resistance. If you're difficult, if you have boundaries, if you don't react emotionally, they'll move on. They'll find someone else, someone easier, someone more available. So the question isn't, how do I make a narcissist love me? The question is, how do I become someone a narcissist can't use? And the answer is, hold your boundaries. Don't react. Don't explain. Don't apologize. Don't chase. Don't believe the flattery. Because the best relationships aren't with people who test you. They're with people who respect you from day one. Failing the narcissist's test is actually how you pass the test of respecting yourself. Watch for the early tests, recognize them, and fail them on purpose.